I actually think webcams can look really good now. Like,
There's really legit ones. Like you don't even need to do the whole conversion, you know what I'm saying? Like switch the DSLR over to run as a webcam anymore. Like you don't just, it's almost unnecessary if you get like a really legit webcam.
yeah, and it's so much cheaper still. I mean, compared to a full camera with a capture card and all that sort of stuff. Like it just doesn't the cost to reward if you're just doing a single camera. Like I know like people with like big fancy podcasts will have like 8 different cameras, and for that you really do need all separate real cameras and then run them through a switcher of some sort and all that. But for just a webcam, I think I had 3 webcams hooked up into my computer at one time, and my computer was just like, what are you doing to me, dude? This is too much.
Yeah.
This is too much, like that, man.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Actually, I totally actually can.
Yeah, it was really relatable technology moment. Yeah,
kind of like parenting in a lot of ways, dude. Too many cameras. It's so true. Right?
It's a lot of input. Yeah,
it's a lot of input all at once, dude. Yeah, man. Well, thank you for taking time to sit down and do this with me. I just think it's really cool to make yourself available like this.
Yeah. Well, look, I really appreciate you asking me. I mean, we obviously, I think a lot of our beliefs, values, overall trajectory and this moment, like it kind of align, right? A lot of alignment with like what we're into, what we're doing. I like following your stuff, and I thought this was dope when you asked me to do it. So I was excited. I'm flattered.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks, dude.
And I'm not that busy, you know. He's to make myself available. I'm not that busy.
No, dude. No. Never. Always put yourself over. I've learned that. Always put yourself over. Really, really busy. You had to squeeze me in.
Oh my gosh, pencil it. That was. I didn't even need to do the reschedule from last week. I just thought it made me seem busier. You know,
paint the picture. Move. Yeah. Totally good move. I met you. Like I've been saying to a lot of people, I met you around 10 years ago when I started getting on, maybe even 11 or 12 at this point, when I started, I was sort of lost in my obesity and really struggling to figure out what to do about it. And I just started, I had tried to rally the troops of everybody I knew on Facebook to be encouraging and get some gas and to try to, I don't know, get the motivation or something to, try to get healthy, right? I did everything what every other guy does lately. I made my own little weight loss page, and I kind of found, like, no disrespect to my friends or colleagues or coworkers or old whatever family members, but like no one really cared that much. You know what I mean? Like they're busy.
I do.
Yeah. Like they don't really care. And they probably seen, you know, they'd watched me spend 35 years, 20 years talking about, fuck, I need to lose this weight. I really need to lose this weight. I'm trying. I think I sort of ran the rubber dry on a lot of people's goodwill. You know what I mean?
That well of support is really super low.
So I had to switch up the tires, dude. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to Instagram. Instagram was kind of popping up there and just sort of find like this community of people out there who have struggled with their weight, that have taken it off or in the process of taking it off or lamenting that they can't take it off, but just people that sort of understood what I was getting to. And I had sort of been introduced to you just in a like, oh, look at this guy. You did it, dude. I mean, I've seen your befores, that, you know, that classic one with you in the button up shirt with just belly on belly on belly. And and hey, look, come on, dude. I'm not judging. You know that.
Right.
And like, look at you, dude. Now you've gotten so fit. And I was just like, wow, this guy did it. And I know you've sort of like, you've really gone through like a really interesting path. Like, it seems like I don't know for sure because we've never really like sat down and dug into each other's thoughts too much. But it seems like you've had some epiphanies and some thought processes changes along the way, haven't you?
Yeah. That this is, it's going to really cliche, but it's like it's almost an understatement, right? Like the me in week one, and I guess this is kind of everybody, but mine are just so, I think, more dramatic. But like, you know, me from week one and me now are just wildly different people, right? But normally people mean like, oh, I just didn't understand like fully what calories were. I was eating a lot of salads. I didn't know I didn't have to, right? But like they're rough around the edges, things just kind of cleaning up. Whereas like when I started, so I was for anyone that doesn't know, right? For context, right? My heaviest, that I got to was 333 pounds. And when I got there, when I started, what really like, I guess to skip the backstory, the thing that really kicked it off for me was like the Primal Blueprint, Mark Sisson. That's like, he's a pretty solid mainstay nowadays, right?
Yeah,
Like he's
same
really
here too, I
locked in.
think. Yeah, same here.
And I mean, to this day, one of my favorite like resources, people, like just things about this like health and fitness area. But I read the Primal Blueprint book because when I would like at my heaviest, when I really was, because like you had said, you know, you kind of, the tires were bare, right, for that support thing. Because every big guy has tried more than once. Like nobody does it that first time, right? Or if you do, hats off, right? But
Right.
so like tons of past attempts, and I could just never really wrap my head around calorie control, like calories in general, counting them. It was just like it didn't compute, right? Like if something was missing, it really wouldn't land. But when I found the Primal Blueprint, that was very different. Not only did it take diet and took it was like essentially, here's how humans have been eating forever when there was no fill in the blank processed foods, whatever, right? Eat everything that, whether if you got to eat something if it had a pulse or if it grew from the ground, right? That was essentially the food list, you know.
Paleo, baby. Paleo.
It was paleo with a little cream, right? Primal
Paleo with a little bit of paleo approved dressing, maybe yes. Mayonnaise.
Yeah, those are really good, but then we're not going to do that. We're not doing tangents yet.
Yeah, fair.
But because look, you picked a bad dance partner if you don't want to do.
No, I want this. I want this. Give it all.
But so I did Primal Blueprint, and that like not only so it was food, it was really simple. Like it made sense to me, and I didn't have to count anything. It was like as long as did I have meat? Yep, check. Is there a vegetable there, or like a potato or something? Check. It was really simple, and I did get a lot of the inherent benefits of like just not eating shitty, right? Because at the end of the day, and a big part of my philosophy now where I have landed, like kind of the seeds were planted then, where it's like it isn't necessarily what you're eating that matters, how you're eating, what the diet is. It's a lot of it is what you're not doing. Right? Like a lot of it is not going back for seconds and thirds. A lot of it is not having dessert every night. A lot of it is not drinking all the time, right? Like so it's not, you know, the benefit, whether I'm eating like a salad or a steak, I don't think either of those like inherently in that context is better or worse, because what I'm not eating is macaroni and cheese and chicken tenders, right? Like that kind of logic. But so I started the Primal Blueprint at 333 pounds, and that like it clicked because it also helped me with other things, because it was like, you know, go outside and play, right? Get in the sun. Like it kind of touched on all of these really like fundamental health. And it was like Liver King without the extremity, like without the extremism, I guess is what I mean, right? It was just like a really simplified, easy to digest Liver King version of those tenets or whatever, right? So that worked really well. Went from 333 down to 209, which like I was feeling it, right? Like I felt good. I then realized that like I had never really considered what life looked like when you finish losing weight, and that's a big part of what I focus on now, and my like what I'm sharing in my content. I work with people as a coach, so like what I focus on with them is it's like no matter how far this, how long this is going to take, how far you have to go, you have to start thinking about what life looks like on the other side. And that really is just an extension of the whole, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle thing, right? You have to change what your fundamental lifestyle is if you want to keep these results. Because if you just do a temporary diet, lose weight, and then you do what? Go back to what you're doing before. And then what do you expect? Right. And then we're all stuck in this cycle that I'm not going to sit here and explain, because it happens to everyone.
Can we call it yo-yo dieting? As I've been trying to like reintroduce to the conversation of.
Yeah, it is. It really is, because every time you try it, you're doing something different, right? For the most part. Which is funny. One thing that I find funny, here's another tangent. It's like, I love it when people say, I'm going to do this again because it worked before, because like, I know what they mean, right? They had success with it before, but like, if it really worked, then there'd be no going back to anything, right? That's where that's the, like, it's a lifestyle, right? Once you've changed what like just normal looks like to you, that is something working. Whereas like, you know, if that's, and who knows, 6 months, 2 years from now, I could feel totally different, because as you'll see, as I go through my timeline here, I've changed a lot. So it was all primal. I was all in paleo, primal, whichever buzzword we want to put on it. Like that's what started it. And that got me, that is still kind of the fundamental belief system I hold, right? Is just like whole foods. That is if the biggest bang for your buck thing that anybody in the country world can do, just eat whole foods, right? but that worked down to 209. Then I start thinking like, because, a lot of and I've heard you talk about a lot of this too, right? So like a lot of that weight, the obesity, the behaviors, a lot of it isn't really just necessarily about food, right? So part of me going through weight loss was like, when I'm done losing this weight, I'll be happy, right? Everything will be fixed, because the thing that's wrong with me is that I'm heavy. And then when that's fixed, everything else will just take care of itself, right? So it didn't, right? So nothing else took care of itself. So here I am as just like a more fit, better looking 209-pound person with all the same problems I had before. No longer really using food or anything to escape it, really just getting hit hard in the face with it. For whatever reason, just hit me at that point really hard. And I turned back to food because, again, I guess I hadn't really created that normal yet, right? Because like whatever that was, when I was like, I'm still unhappy, unfulfilled, yada yada yada. So I spiral out of control. And so to doing paleo, I did that for 12 months, and I got from 333 to 209.
You read my mind.
It felt like magic.
You read my mind.
At that 209 mark, in 6 months, I got back up to 289. So like, that was 80 pounds in 6 months.
Wow,
that was the spiral, right? Like that was tough. Back at 289, I start again. You kind of hit whatever that point is that makes you kind of recommit.
What year is this at 289 again? What year do you think? If you could,
let me back it up. So if I was 24 when I started everything, I'm 25 when I gained the weight back. I'm 25, 26 when this. So that would be 2000 and, oh my God, 15.
Okay.
I think 2015-ish, right?
Okay.
2015-ish, I guess, for like,
yeah.
So 2015 to 2016, that area, right? But I gained in the 6 months, I gained back 80 pounds. I should really nail this timeline. I might go on my Facebook, like find pictures of certain, you know what I'm saying?
I've done the same.
Like detective down the timeline.
Absolutely.
But so I get 289 in 6 months, and then I'm ready to recommit. And I did the thing that I just kind of dumped on a few minutes ago of like, I'm going to go back to the primal paleo stuff because it worked before. Right. So I did the very same thing. But then now all of a sudden, so this is, 2016 ish, maybe 2017, maybe 2015, but it is in this explosion of keto popularity.
Right.
And there's a lot of cross pollination there. There was a lot of overlapping, right? Because like, granted, you can eat keto and, go to Wendy's every day, and there's all kinds, especially nowadays, not back then, but like nowadays, everything is a keto product, right? You can go to Walmart and get essentially processed foods that are keto. So that kind of goes against the tenets of, right, paleo, which would be whole food, but then you can have a potato, which is a carb, right? So there's a lot of overlap. You can do them simultaneously. And I think that's what I found a lot of people were doing. So I was just like, you know what? Mark Sisson said keto was good. He did it a little bit. I'm going to do it. Right. That was basically the thought process, or the decision making. Again, I do keto, and then 18 months. Well, to be fair, I do keto up until, so I'm not sure exactly timeline wise, but from 289, I did keto until January of 2018. And this is where I can put more hard timelines on things, because I remember this. In January of 2018, when that started, January 1st, I was 185. And that was big. Like, that was huge. That was another, like, essentially I lost 100 pounds for the second time. Right. So like, that felt good. It was cool. I had given more thought into like, what am I doing here now? Right. So I guess I'll back up a little bit, because something I did to reward myself, something that's a really big part of my life now, but I did to reward myself when I got to the 200-pound mark, was I started Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Right?
Yes. Yes. It's been neat watching this journey from afar, by the way.
So thank you. Appreciate that. So I started jiu-jitsu in September when I was 200 pounds, and then just adding jiu-jitsu and changing nothing else about what I was doing. I was at 185 when January of 2018 starts, right? So, and that was like, I think what I'm assuming was the most popular World Carnivore Month that Sean Baker did.
Like 2018, you're saying?
Yeah.
Like just fresh off of Joe Rogan.
I think that was like
experience.
the first, exactly. Yeah. That was like the one, right? So right. I did it. And by the beginning of February, I was 170. Oh my gosh, it was 178. Sorry. And that was the lowest I've ever been. Right. And that's why I say when I tell people, because like you got to package it easy. You can't talk a lot, especially like social media stuff when you're trying to explain this all this.
Got 15
so I
seconds.
lost 155 pounds. Boom.
Wow.
Right. I did it in 3 years. Boom. Right. But it wasn't like gradually losing the 155 over 3 years. Right. It was drop a lot in a year, gain a lot in 6 months, and then spend 18 months dropping a lot again. Right. Now, since then, like fast forward right up to now, not to I'm skipping my evolution a little bit, right? But I guess for context, I'm like 215 right now, but I wear the same clothes that I was wearing at that 185 mark.
So you're sitting at 215 today.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wear, like I said, I'm, you know, I have 32-inch waist for my pants, which was what I was wearing. I was wearing at 185. Honestly, the one thing that I can't really get away with anymore, I was in a medium shirt, which at one point I was proud of. And then it kind of almost started feeling embarrassing.
I could wear a medium for about 2 weeks, fresh out of basic training, and it was awesome.
It was like it felt really good, right?
It was so
and then
cool.
I guess after a while, I was like pipsqueak, right? So then I kind of entered my like meathead-ish phase a little bit. So now, you know, now I'm in a large. I like it. It's comfortable. 215. So that's my weight evolution. But when I hit that low mark, I was doing carnivore, which was just an extension of keto because of the challenge, right?
Yeah.
I liked carnivore more than I liked doing keto, just from a enjoyment, like personal enjoyment standpoint. So I kept doing it for like the next, I think I literally did that for like 18 months of like, you know, with like, oh, it's my birthday, here's cake, right? Not a extreme person, right? Like small indulgences, but we're talking maybe one thing a month that wasn't like meat. You know what I mean? So I did that until the pandemic, right? So like 2020, like March 2020. So I can get that date also pretty close, right? So my lowest weight ever was in February 2018. I just kind of bopped around, mainly focused on jujitsu, just eating like carnivore, right? Like that was a kind of a lull period. I guess I mainly, honestly, at that time focused on content and like like the stuff I was trying to do as a brand or whatever. Like that was really, so it wasn't like lost years. It's just not super relevant or interesting for this conversation. So, but I got to quarantine, and that was another kind of like mental struggle. I felt like I could have gotten close to that whole like regain process again, right? Like mentally I was really messed up because obviously, right, same reasons as everybody, but then also on top of that, like I didn't realize how much I relied on jujitsu as an outlet, like just in general, like, you know, jujitsu is therapy. And while I do kind of roll my eyes at that because I'm a big therapy supporter, so like therapy is therapy, you know what I'm saying? Like that kind of thing.
Sure.
There's also a lot of validity to jujitsu is therapy, gym is therapy, right? Because like it was just and I didn't realize until about like 3 weeks in to like being locked in the house, and it was like, oh my God, like I'm just like I'm antsy. I don't even know what it is, right?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So you know, doing the whole like at home workout thing, if anything, super intense, trying to like scratch whatever that itch was I couldn't find again, right? I also, because I was like starting to question my diet, like getting tempted by things, I compromised with myself and I made it content, right? Because that's what you do, you know? So I started doing Carbontine, because at the time all the content I had been putting out for the last 2 years was like, here's another steak I'm eating, you know. I choked somebody out, here's a steak. I choke somebody out, here's a steak. Here's a transformation.
I feel the same, dude. I feel like such a one-dimensional. All I know how to do is just a picture of me staring at a treadmill, or a picture of me, you know. It's just like it's so boring, so uninteresting. It's kind of how I feel sometimes. So I get what you're saying. I think you're particularly talented at that whole thing, but I can relate to what you're saying. Let me circle back. I just want to hit something really fast. So you're almost the only person I've heard say so far, and then it hasn't said, and then I went really backwards during the pandemic, right? A lot of people, and myself included, I gave it all back during the pandemic, and then plus some. How did you find that I get maybe you're driving there as we're going anyways, but how did you hold
I
how
wasn't.
did you weren't you just
Yeah,
fell off
I
in the
was.
pandemic as well?
Oh, sorry. No, I meant I wasn't like I wasn't headed there.
Okay, good.
Like in
Okay,
my
well, let me
story.
ask you
Yeah, yeah.
how did you? And I'm interested in the story. I don't want to tangent you too far off that you're missing the points you're making. But how? What was kind of your anchor in during the pandemic to not go backwards? Because I've seen so many people just say, "And I lost it all during it." Was it the? How did you hold it together during those couple years?
So admittedly, and it's honestly it's worse now than it was pre-pandemic. But my kids do soccer. My daughters, I have three kids in all of this, right? I have three children.
Yes, right. Yeah,
um,
exactly. Good
I
point.
actually, to be fair, I had having the third was kind of the kickstart point for everything, so
Okay.
to speak. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Sure.
So like that was part of like that 333 decision to I got to do something was number three. But so like I have kids and my daughters, I have two daughters. They both do soccer, travel soccer. We're very busy. All the kids do sports. Like, they were in school at the time. We homeschool now, but like pre-pandemic, our lives were just so busy that for all the negative, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not making any money. Oh my gosh, we all might die, right? Like at various stages of it, right? um, the like for all the negative, like we were all just home together with no commitments. Like no one has to go to work, no one has a call. Like that was when my kids so like I've been working out in my garage most of this time. Like I've got all kinds of things now. I have more than I did then, but like uh that was like when my kids really first started like working out, exercising with me. Like,
Mm.
I mean, they were so little then. Like now they still do it, but they like my son, especially, he's 13. He does like real workouts. Like he's actually lifting weights. But like then it was just like it was cute, but they were out there and they're engaged, they're doing something, right?
Yeah.
Like, and when we finished working out, I didn't have to like, okay, I got to take a shower so I can run to this. I can go train. I have a coaching call, which I did still have coaching clients that I was talking to because working them through pandemic, right? But um that we just it was so nice to just be so together with no like distraction commitment outside. So I think that helped a lot. And it's weird because I kind of I don't talk about my pandemic like time frame a lot outside of like the things I'll get to that I was going to talk about anyway, right? But like my true pandemic experience, I don't talk about a lot because I almost feel guilty that it wasn't harder or worse,
Oh,
if that
interesting.
makes sense,
Almost like
right? Like
survivor's guilt, huh?
kind of because like I do my at that point most of my work was online. I had a part-time job to supplement, but that part-time job I was an essential worker, but I was doing like 10 hours a week. So like I guess I did have to go places, but like it was so easy to swallow that after like 30 hours a week all the time kind of thing. uh so like I had a part-time job that was supplementing what I was building with my online stuff. So I had clients that I was coaching, but like I could continue that. My wife's a photographer. She works out of our home. Granted, there's a little while there where she couldn't do anything, but then certain regulations opened up. So it's like, as long as we cleaned certain ways, like, so she could still get a little bit of work. Right. And like, just I guess the break from everything, excuse me. So like we had an easier time. Right. So then we were all together, which we enjoyed that. We weren't like, I mean, we were tight against it, but it wasn't like, oh my God, we're going to lose the house. Right. It was like, maybe you shouldn't keep eating steak. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
conversation around changes was very different. So all in all, wasn't that bad, especially when you start hearing about some of the like worst case scenario stuff. Right. So like, that's where I do. I almost feel bad that it wasn't harder or worse, but it was like, we almost look back at it in our family as like with fondness. Like, do you remember when we were all home together all the time? Right. So like, it's weird, but that was the thing that made it not like totally fall apart, right? But I did feel the pull. Like I did feel that tug of which I guess is an easy way to spin the tangent back to I made it content, right? I compromised with myself. You're not going to eat Oreos and ice cream, right? But I'll give you something, right? You've been eating steak for 2 years. I did Carbontine, right? Ha ha ha. Funny play on words. I made it content. It was Carbontine because I'd only been eating steak. That's what all the followers were used to. They were there for the carnivore content.
I feel horrible right now. My maintenance guy's at the door right now. I have to interrupt our conversation. 1 second.
You're good. You're good.
Hey, how's it going? Awesome, dude. Oh, look at this. Oh. Thanks, Jim. Yeah. Oh, great. As well. Okay. Carbontine, I think that's awesome. All right, hold on. So when you're a fat guy and you get up and out of the chair really fast, then you have to catch your breath and kind of make it, real subtle so no one can tell that deep down inside your heart rate's already up to 180. And you're having to sort of just, bring it back together.
All right, my cord's tangled. Yeah.
So Carbontine, I love it. You found it as a branding opportunity to change up the game a little bit, right?
Yeah, I was like, look, like I'm struggling. I'm gonna give myself some potatoes to see if that kind of quiets down that little voice that, like, to this day doesn't fully go away. Right? We've gotten a lot better about coexisting, but that tug was really coming. Like, gotta eat. Just like eat something, it'll make you feel better. You're stressed out. Like maybe eating will make you feel better since you can't go to jiu-jitsu, right? Just replacing one like distraction, attachment, whatever, with another one. And the one that I kept going back to was food. So I started doing the sweet potatoes and I did Carbontine. And like, admittedly, at that point, I was a little zealous, right? I was like, carnivore's like the diet, right? I was like that guy. I was like, everyone should do this, And then like my compromise was like, okay, well, you can have fruit, but like everyone should do this, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you're saying Paul Saladino was your idol? Is that what you?
Even then, I found him a little off-putting. Like,
I don't believe you.
I don't not like. I was a bigger Sean Baker guy, right? Like,
sure.
Shit on vegans. Everyone should eat meat, but like I guess I wasn't an aggressive zealot, right?
Okay.
I was more Sean Baker than Paul Saladino.
Okay.
It was like a withheld belief, but I wouldn't really like fight you on it, and I would talk shit if you were vegan, right? Like, so yeah. I was pretty close.
Yeah.
But I was like all in. Like I was like, this is it. Like everybody should do this. This is great. And I add the potatoes back in and I eat them, and like not only do I feel fine, it's like you eat them and you're like waiting for something bad to happen, and like nothing. Right. Like you eat them again, another day, another week. I'm still eating them, posting it. Ha ha ha. Isn't this funny? I feel fine. And then I'm like, oh my God, I kind of feel like good. It's like, almost better. I felt like, I kind of felt like I slept a little bit better. I felt like I had a little more pop in the gym. And like, I can logically look at it and be like, well, it's the introduction of carbohydrates. Like, as long as I'm eating them at relatively decent times, I'm going to get a benefit in those certain areas, right? Sleeping and fitness. And, but that kind of like, I guess, made me question how I felt about dieting and food and everything. And then that started like a quick spiral trajectory into towards like what I am today, where it's like, I'm essentially just like a calorie guy, right? Like calories really are all that matter, right? What do I focus on with myself and with my clients is like, how many calories do you eat in a day? How much protein do you eat in a day? Because I think protein's like the magic secret.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So those are the only two things we focus on. People I work with can eat like they can has money. They can do it keto, right? They can do it low fat. They can mix it up day to day, week to week. Like as long as you're controlling the calories, you're eating the protein, you're good. And that is where I have landed as a person, right? With all these little nuances and caveats, going back to like the paleo is still kind of my like fundamental belief concept of what is best. But I also don't think that everyone should always constantly do what is best anymore either, right? So like I have a little more balance in my life, but it's funny because as I look at the trajectory of going through all this, I don't know that I could have the balance that I have if I hadn't gone through the lack of balance. Like,
no, I like
what
you're saying.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes all the sense in the world, because I start wondering, like, I mean, I keep thinking like, okay, when is he going to bring up hyperpalatability, and when is he going to bring up, could I have done that? And I'm not, please don't take that as a miss. It's just me asking me like, how come that hasn't worked for me in the past? And I think as I got caught up so much in just the processed food hyperpalatability part of eating it. So when you hear go carnivore, which I never was very good at, I think I made it like maybe a week and a half, couple weeks, once or twice carnivore. I always went back to the fast food eventually, and always went back to processed food eventually, much faster than I'd ever want to really, because it's just like, why are you failing, I suppose. But that I see you sometimes like, and I'm certain we're kind of getting there, but I see you sometimes, you're like, hey, look, I'm eating a donut, it's not ruining me. You need to understand that it is calories, it is hitting your proteins, everything you're saying. How do you manage that effectively though, in a world where it's so easy to spiral out of control with just the wrong kind of foods?
The toughest part and all that goes back to like when I'm talking about that, creating a normal, like a new normal, right? Like I do feel that like just on a fundamental level, my decision making has improved. But I did make the comment earlier, like that voice is still there, right? The one that was talking to me during like the
I remember you saying
like
that.
yeah. So like, and I use this analogy a lot with like people that I'm coaching, right? Because like I never want anyone to think that like I'm cured, right? Like
let me step in on you just for a second. Yeah. I have, my wife introduced the concept to me of naming that voice, and I've named that voice Russ. And I go by Russell. I was called Russ as a kid, and sometimes me and Russ have to fight each other, and those fights are I lose them sometimes, but I remember there was one spring one fall a couple of years ago where I had a buddy suggests I give psilocybin a chance, and I tried some psilocybin one night, and I had this vision of, do you remember Saving Private Ryan, when the two guys are fighting with the knife and they flip it and I was like, dude, this is Russ.
Oh my god, that's wild. That's such a good
yeah, Russ will put this, Russ is willing to kill you for this food. And it's been something I haven't let go of since I thought that.
That's a good analogy for that though. Like that's such a good like visualization of, right? That's crazy, man.
So
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. So how do you deal with that voice then? With now that you've been there twice now, you've come back, you've lost 100 pounds, you've built an athletic body, you participate in sports, you don't seem to demify really much of any foods right now. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that voice to just not go crazy on a Friday night or Saturday morning or whatever it was for you when you were 300 pounds?
Well, but like, so, I mean, for me, a lot of it's just like anything else, right? Like in the gym, everything's about repetition. And it's funny because I find doing jujitsu and it being such a big part of my life, I'm big on analogies. And I think that marriage of jujitsu and analogies has turned me into a bit of a monster, because I view everything in life now as there's levels to it, right? Like from anything as simple as folding clothes to as complicated as jujitsu, right? There's white belts, there's blue belts. Like everyone is a different belt at different things in their life based on like it's their skill level there, right? Like, and we all have different strengths. So like some things I might be a black belt in, you're a white belt in, but then vice versa, right? Like you're seeing your microphone, I'm going to assume that your setup is more black belt-esque, right? Than mine. I'm kind of jealous. I've been looking at it a little bit.
Low budget black belt.
I mean, I got that low budget black belt. Like, hey, it counts, still counts.
It still counts, dude.
But, so like, I look at everything in levels, and then I also think that like essentially the secret to anything, it becomes repetition, right? Like, secret to losing weight, when you say consistency, all you really mean is repetition. Like how many good days can you repeat put together, and that becomes consistency, right? If I start working with somebody and like I hate it when they have a vacation soon, because vacation is a massive test. It's not going to work, right? I know no matter how committed or like ready they are, if it's within the first 3 weeks or like month, if they have a trip planned, it's like, that's not going to go well. Right?
And it isn't also a little bit of a false idol. They want to just sprint and lose as much weight as fast as possible for 3.5 weeks because they're going to the beach for their anniversary. And it's like, it falls back into that yo-yo narrative that I was talking about earlier, right?
Right. Exactly. But another good example, someone just recently, his child had a spirit night at like a pizza place, right? You go, part of the money goes to like the school, like one of those kind of deals. That's a good first repetition, right? Can you go to that event? Because you can make the decision not to take the pizza home. Like anything at your house where there's leftovers, that's going to be too hard, right? So it's kind of the same concept in fitness: progressive overload and repetitions, right? That's how you make progress in just about anything, right? You start
Mm-hmm.
small, you repeat that until you can scale it up, and then you repeat your scaled versions, right? And I'm using my hands, but I don't think you can see it.
I see
But
some of it.
but so like, the more little wins you can get, can you check out at the store without buying the M&Ms because you definitely were looking at them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you go to that pizza night at school, or like that spirit night at the pizza place? Just get like, order like a slice and a salad, right? I'm not telling you can't eat pizza, right? But if you have it there, or I am telling you can, right? Because it is different for different people. Like I definitely, and that's where I think it's funny, because I struggle so much with social media and promotion, because I don't fall into anything extreme enough to really sell it, right? Like to really just like boom and like inflammatory statement, because I don't like, there's so much nuance, you know what I mean, to all of it. But regardless, whether you go to pizza night and you just have a salad, or you go and you practice a little bit of moderation and you have a pizza and a salad, slice of pizza and a salad, you had that, you didn't order a pizza to bring home with you, you came home, you didn't stop at a drive through, right? Like all of that stuff that would have happened before, right? You get these little tests to flex that, whatever you want to call it, willpower, discipline, there's all these words we can put on it, but just a little repetition, an easy fight with that voice to win, right? Like just give yourself a layup, like so, and you get a couple of those, and then maybe you make it through a birthday party, right? Like your kid's birthday party, and you didn't destroy yourself. You know what I mean? Always the at home stuff is going to be harder because the leftovers. Like I'll always stand by that. You're the one staring at it after everybody left, and especially after everybody left, it's so much easier to eat it because no one's watching. Like, you know what I know. You have to know what I mean, right? Because that's
You
just
mean
part of it.
Saturday? You mean Saturday for me just now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So like,
I know what you mean.
those days are always harder, but if you can win the small ones and just like, get by the big ones, hope. It's obviously, sometimes it's going to be impossible. Like you're set up for failure, your vacation is scheduled and you really kind of started too late. But like, so I'm never going to say it's too late to start. Like do everything you can, do your best, try your best to nail that vacation. But I'm just saying, from a realistic standpoint, from me outside looking in, it's like, going back to you saying like, how did I get here, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of little wins with, and I was fortunate enough to not have too many large temptations until I could handle them a little bit.
How have you learned to stay focused and to find a maintenance where you can make these subtle adjustments in your in your bulk or your cut season, and you're not just like tsunamied by massive weight gain again?
Well, I will say this: the bulking and cutting, whether regardless of how disciplined or not I remain, is still going back to like you saying, like people are really good at like losing or gaining weight. Like going in a direction is really easy, but like kind of chilling out is like the hardest thing to do. In my maintenance periods, especially when I'm doing maintenance and like not tracking, paying, like I don't want to say not paying attention to food, because I'm always paying attention to food to some,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But like when I'm not like logging everything and weighing it, when I'm just like
Right.
scoop it out, that looks
Right.
good, right? Um, it's just hard. And I've learned to like really, this is going back to like, I used to be more critical and extreme and like just intense with myself, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but now what I do for maintenance, I weigh myself weekly, just once a week, right? And I do that no matter what I'm doing, right? If I'm bulking, if I'm cutting, like whatever the thing is I'm doing, it's just Friday. Right? It's just, that is just what it is. It's like that is a constant piece. But if when I'm doing maintenance, I watch it, and I'll admittedly, it's foolish for anyone to think that like, let's say like 215, right? Like this is the number, right? So this is what I should be all the time. I really think that maintenance exists on like this 12-ish pound window, right? Like, you could, so for me, it'd be like low as 200, as high as 215. To me, this could be like like I could live here in this range. It's when I notice that it starts, like when I do those weekly weigh-ins and I'm keeping track of it, it's like I notice like, oh shit, it's like I'm kind of going up here. Like it's, like, oh, it didn't level itself out, right? It kept going. And I wish I could say that ever happened in the other direction, but it just doesn't. right? I'm never like, oh my God, I'm losing weight too quick.
You
Like
don't
that's crazy.
accidentally
Yeah.
lose weight. There's no accidental weight loss in your
That has
existence yet.
literally never once happened
I think it's
ever.
happened to me twice, but that's about
Oh,
it.
look, I'm almost jealous. Like my problem is always like if I go, I think that's about right. I can guarantee you that it's either right or it's too much.
Yeah.
Like that is just what is just, that's, I think also remnants of, right. Like old me, the voice kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but that is, I mean, excuse me, but like maintenance is incredibly hard, but I've learned to really just use that weight as like an indicator. And then I'll usually try to, like, if I'm not tracking, assuming I'm just trying to live my life, right? Like, because like I don't think anybody's meant to just log what they eat into an app forever, right? Like we should just be able to kind of just eat. But like I also think that if we're real with ourselves about the environment and the world that we live in, it's going to be impossible to do that truly like just eat thing. Like I think that that's almost an unattainable like that kind of went out with like sundials, right? It's like, yeah, maybe that was cool, but like we can't really do that anymore, right? We have clocks, you know. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that was cool when you could just eat whatever because it was just potatoes and whatever you killed that day.
Yeah.
But like now it's, now that, you know, there's candy at every checkout, and like, you know, we just had Easter. I can't tell you
No
the
one's
number
chopping
of,
wood anymore, Ben.
you know, it's right.
No one's
Exactly.
chopping wood.
Now we sound like old men. I was trying to beat around the bush maybe, but like it's kind of like that. But there is like, I just think that like that's why I've always like the really extreme carnivore people. Like I went to KetoCon in 20 something,
Okay.
2019 maybe,
Okay.
because like I was still doing carnivore, but I was like in the keto space, right?
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
carnivore just got absorbed, sucked right into that. But it was cool because I got to meet Sean Baker and Paul Saladino, and I ate with them and like 30 other people, but like ate with them at like a Fogo de Chao, like Brazilian steakhouse. Like it
Oh,
was a
what a
really
great
cool
memory.
life. It
What a
was a really
great
cool
memory,
life
dude.
experience. It
That's
was a really
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
But like I went to that and they had speakers and there were people up there like, in like these were real people in the audience asking questions, right? Like people that like I would work with, people that are like you or I sitting here, like they're not like those people, which I do kind of use in a derogatory sense, but it's with all due respect, right?
Right.
But like the speaker's up there and someone asks, like, you know, what do you do when you really just like need like the treat, like, right? Like, you know, we ordered donuts, like birthday cake. Like, what do you do when you want ice cream kind of thing? She was like dark chocolate and an orange. And like, I mocked that relentlessly the whole time I was at the convention. And like, because I hate that answer. And it's to me, it's like maybe in it, this is where like in my talking through this with my wife, I learned it's like, you know how like you or I don't know what it's like to feel uncomfortable walking alone at night because we're not a woman or
Yeah,
whatever.
for sure.
Like
For sure,
that
dude. For sure.
It's like, okay, so maybe all the broken fat pieces of me don't allow me to know what that actually feels like, where she says that. Like yeah, a little bit of dark chocolate and an orange slice and I'm like chilling, that's my sweet tooth. And it was like that, she to me in my brain she's either lying or like broken, but probably lying. So like there's just some things that don't compute. So like I mock some of the more, I guess, extreme approaches, and it's really funny because like I got so wrapped up in that memory that I don't necessarily remember why I started talking or what the question was. But like that I just remember like have when with like I'll never really get the whole like, oh, I can circle it back now. So I don't think in today's world when like things exist that are delicious that like we'll ever truly be able to just 100% of the time self-regulate, right? Like the hunter gatherer days that worked great because that fit. This is like what they had available is like they kind of didn't have a fucking choice, right? Like this
Yeah.
kind of like, so but we have so much choice now that I
Yeah.
do just think it's almost a fallacy. It's like to resist it is almost harder than learning how to live within it, you know? And I think living within it, the struggle with that is that also looks wildly different person to person, so that I can't put a little bow on it and package it and say, here's how you like live healthy in today, right?
Yeah.
So everything that I post, like all my content, everything, I really try to like boil it down to the things that will impact everyone. That's why like I say calories and protein, because like it doesn't matter if you're a vegan, a carnivore, like what food specifically you're eating. Everyone has to pay attention to those things.
Yeah.
Right? Like those are important for everyone.
Yeah. I guess I've heard it said like this too, like that whole concept of intuitive eating is so difficult to do right now. So you either have to track how much you're eating of whatever, or track the whatever and make it only meat, and make it only eggs, and make it only maybe one potato a day. But or you could even say more than one potato, because you're doing it intuitively, and all the fruit and veggies you want. But the moment you do start dipping into the processed foods, to the hyperpalatable foods, to the all of a sudden I just put on that Gary Hughes hot sauce on my chicken thighs, and now I'm not full at 3. I just knocked down 8 chicken thighs because it just tasted so delicious, right?
So good now.
It's not intuitive anymore, or maybe it is the intuitive. I can't trust intuitiveness anymore, because I've introduced so many variables to make it so hard to just eat intuitively. Does that kind of get to what you're thinking as well?
100%. I intuitively ate up to 333 pounds, right? So like, I'm done. I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
Right? Everything I eat now, even my air quotes bad choices, it's like informed eating, right? It's not intuitive, because intuitive doesn't work. I don't think anyone can really do intuitive, because even if I'm sure some people can, right? I'm going to take myself back to the, like, I'm not a woman, like a nighttime analogy, right? I'm sure there are people who like can genuinely self-regulate, even especially if they're eating like, say, paleo, whatever, right? But for me, it's always going to require some level of attention. But you're right, like you have to do something to bring those calories down, whether that be to actually limit them by like measuring them, or just making it hard to get there. Like that's kind of by limit, like changing the food choices. All you really do is just you make it like, chicken thighs with the hot sauce go down easy. But my favorite example is like, if I gave you like, if 3,000 calories in pizza, that's going to be gone in 10 minutes. I give you 3,000 calories of chicken breast, and like you will kill yourself before you finish it. Right. Like that would be like, okay, if you had sauce and stuff, all of a sudden you start doctoring it up, that goes into palatability conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But like just, if I just hand you chicken, even if I put salt on it, it's like, you're not going to make it through 3,000 calories of that in a day. Whereas the pizza went down like, boom, smooth.
How are you sitting on the fact that all of your neighbors and everybody that you look online and on TV are all on Ozempic right now? What do you think about that? How does that make you mad? Like, where was the Ozempic? I had to do it the hard way, and these guys are all getting free rides. Or what do you think about that?
I think I'm kind of a pussy, because, going back to free rides, like it's Ozempic now, but like before it was surgeries, right? And it was like, it was the easy way out. And it was like, it was always funny to me that people said that in the first place, because when I thought about it, I would get scared. I was like, I don't have surgery. Like, I really want to lose weight. Like, I want it. It's like, I'm kind of afraid to like be cut open for it.
Yeah. Have your intestines like replumbed. It's kind of a big deal, dude.
Exactly. And especially now that I know people like pretty intimately who went through it. So we've talked about like the process and all this, and it's like, fuck that, the easy way out my ass. But then like the medicine, while I think lean a little more into easy way out, I still lean into I'm a pussy, because it's like, okay, but what is that doing to me long term on the back end somewhere else, right? Like, and I mean, I'm sure there's studies, right? I haven't really necessarily read them, because I haven't explored it or entertained it. So I'm really coming at it from like a more of a knee-jerk reaction place.
Sure,
right? Like I'm not like super informed on it, but if you just say like, because it's new drug in a sense of like newly rolled out, right? Like it's probably been working on it for 5 damn years. You know what I mean?
Well, I think semaglutide's been around for a really long time.
Okay. Okay. Right. That kind of thing. Right.
And Ozempic is literally just, I don't know if it's literally, I think it's literally just semaglutide in a very patented dispensing needle.
Gotcha. And see, it's like the method that's the brand.
Yeah, because it's like they can't really make the peptide expensive. There's no patent on the peptide, so they put a patent on like how to inject yourself with the peptide in a presumably very safe manner, and that's kind of the spin too right now. If you do it on your own, you might overdose yourself. You might have air in the needle. You might kill yourself. You might well, I mean,
just
whenever
trying to just demonize anything, right?
Demonize
anything we could throw at it. Yeah.
Anything to value marking it up 300 or 500% or whatever they are to do to mark it up 500% versus if you just buy it as the peptide form, right? Which is like how I get it prescribed to me. So I take a modest dose of semaglutide. I don't take the highest dose, right? I think when you take the highest dose is when you're risking the most adverse side effects, right? And I've heard people say there's no such thing as side effects. There's just only effects, the ones you want and the ones you don't want, right? So
it's really true.
It's really true, right? So
that's really true.
I take a modest dose of semaglutide. My doctor has told me, hey man, we haven't had any adverse reactions. No one's come up regretful for it yet. And I'm all for that. But ultimately I still keep thinking, if I'm getting a little bit of an edge, which I know I get a little bit of an edge when I take my semaglutide, let me just keep it at a little bit of an edge. Let me not just redline max dose for max effect and then get mass effects of the stuff maybe I don't want, like the nausea or the diarrhea or the slow digestion. There's a comedian that talks about how he would get the most disgusting burps on Ozempic, and it's because your food's not digesting in your system. It's slowing the digestion process down. So
it's like
much.
Literally like, right? It's like moving really slow.
Yeah, exactly. So I that's sort of like, I take a small dose of TRT, I take a small dose of DHEA, I take a small dose of testosterone, or I guess I said that of thyroid. And then not recently, about a year now, I've been on, a little longer than a year, I've been taking semaglutide as well. So I'm on it, but nothing's maxed out. Everything's a pretty healthy run of the mill dose, but I have seen the effects in my lab work where my hormones have balanced out better, and I feel better doing it. And I've helped me get over, it helped me get over a lot of stuff, which I've talked about at length many times. But I am like you. I've always, the weight loss surgery has always scared me, even though I was at one point desperate enough to consider doing it and to go down all the inpatient stuff that the hospital wanted you to do with it and stuff like that.
Like go see a therapist and like do this test, and it's even before you have the surgery, it's a lot. And then surgery itself is scared. See, I'm too lazy and scared.
And ultimately I came back with, it said at least a third of the people put the weight back on after, within a few months or a few years after. I was like, I will for sure be one of those.
That's the biggest thing that I have learned since, that like really kills the whole easy way out thing. It's like, oh my God, so let me get this straight, right? You had surgery, and then you spent like essentially 6 months eating like somewhere between liquids and jello. Like, like the food reintroduction process, basically takes a whole year. And then like, you have to be careful how much you're drinking when you're eating. And even then it's like, you still have to stop yourself from eating too much food. Like, you still have to do all the same shit you had to do before, like having not had surgery, like someone who didn't have surgery does. So it's like, it seems like a hard way out. I mean, I know that obviously you have the benefit of like, the limited capacity, and it changes depending on the surgery you have, right? Like, obviously there are benefits to make it harder to overeat and things like that. But going back to your like third of people gain it back or whatever, it's like, it's because they have to do all the same work that they had to do anyway. That's why, like, I hate it. This like, easy way out thing. It's like, I don't know, this shit still seems kind of hard.
Like, a lot of consequences to it as well. Right?
Yeah. 100%.
Are you happy that you've gone down this road of going into the physical fitness and the training and things like that? Is this sort of been, do you think you could have maintained, happy is really the wrong word, but do you think you could have maintained this success if you hadn't become, in some sense, like a professional athlete in and of your own self in your former life, or you still had to do that 3-hour commute every day and all that? How much do you think that's changed? Like, because I keep hearing a lot of people say it is just, I'll say, I guess it feels like a part-time job staying in shape. It really does. And most households have 2 incomes now, right? There's not, and I'm not making any social commentary on the way it should or shouldn't be, but like there's no one staying at home that's just a designated dinner cooker anymore, right? So now everyone's tired, everyone's catching, either you're a bachelor and you're out there trying to make your way in the world and you're catching those 2 or 3 drive-throughs a day, like we talked about,
Yep.
or you're a busy family and your kids are starving, they're home from soccer practice, and your spouse is exhausted and you're exhausted, and it really is so much faster just to bake some lasagna in the stove or to grab something or
Yeah, those pizzas are done in like 12 minutes.
12 minutes, dude. 12 minutes.
For like a whole frozen pizza, right? It's like, oh my God, even if it's 20, it's like, okay, but and we're not cooking, right? Like
no one cooks anymore, right? I guess that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, how do you advise your clients to deal with the fact that you have to learn how to carve out time for yourself for this? How do you coach that for your clients?
Oh, so I'm trying to avoid saying it's very individual, because like certain people, I do tend to maybe lean into more like convenience things, but then we start to make more informed decisions, right? Like, I think I can't. Oh, that's funny. I'm not sure if I've posted it or if I just have it made to post, right? It's content creation, right? It's just like a never ending, but it's like, here's 2 foods that are equally convenient, right? Like you can get both of these, they microwave roughly at the same time, right? Whatever. And then it's like, flip it over, do the numbers. Cause that's really popular now, right? I'm just kind of hopping on, like, it's really popular to show 2 different things that are like things. Most of the time it's fast food or just food in general. Like, look how much little unhealthy food you get versus how much healthy food you can get. Whereas I've seen
a lot of avocado toast in the this versus that thing lately, right?
yeah.
Dispelling notions.
So I'm gonna. It's like, these 2 packages of, I think one's like chicken fajita thing and one's like a Hawaiian chicken thing, right? Same price, same amount of time, same like weight on the package. I think they're made by the same people. It's like, flip it over, and like all of a sudden, if you start running the numbers, the fajita one's like a little more protein, like a lot less calories, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I mean, granted, like you can get into this whole really nitpicky bullshit, right? About like, but I don't like fajitas. I like, I like teriyaki sauce. Like, I don't care. The point is, like, if you just take a second, like, I'm not telling you to spend your whole Sunday meal prepping if you're like super busy person, right? There's room for some things like fill in the blank, certain convenience foods, the Uncle Ben's rice. If you get like the one that you microwave or open, those have more calories than just like making rice in a rice cooker, because in order to microwave it in the bag, they have to put oil in it, right? But it's not enough to change the calories so much where that can't work for somebody if they're trying to be like quick, right? So I guess I'm not 100% of like always cook for yourself, but I always strongly encourage it. And I do try to paint a picture of like how easy it really can be. Whereas I never meal prep anything. I have protein prepped in my fridge all the time, right? So like, whether that be
that's the winner right
thighs,
there.
whether that be chicken thighs or ground beef or a little of both, right? It could be anything. I've even, and I don't like this as much. I stopped doing it because they don't like keep the same, but I even like scrambled eggs before to keep like, and then like scoop them out and microwave them. But that's it's not good enough. I didn't like it. But anyway, keep the protein prepped, because then if I have a little more time, maybe I make some rice or I cut some potatoes up and air fry them or whatever. Or if I have 0 time, I'll just grab a chicken thigh and gnaw it cold on the way. So it's the protein piece is taken care of, and then it becomes adaptable to the situation, right? So like, as long as I've got tortillas and I've got rice, I'm essentially going to be fine as long as I got ground beef in the fridge.
What have you learned about yourself and about this over this last, it's been about 15 years now? Is that right?
It's, no, we're hitting just the decade mark. I think.
Okay.
Because I was in 2000, it was 2014 when my daughter was born, and that was when I fell apart, and that was the year I turned 24.
That's right.
So like, and I turned 34 this year.
So a decade's a long time.
Literal decade, yeah.
Decade's a long time. And how do you feel going into this now? Has it changed you much as a person?
This is always a weird one, because like it has, like I have changed as a person by going through this, but then there's always part of me that wonders, is like, how much of this is who I would have been had I not like you have that angst, right? Going back to like the mental part of feeling unfulfilled and the physical one that you can't get out. And then the physical one tends to distract you from the mental one. So it all kind of blurs together as like just unhappy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever it is, however it manifests for you, right? If it's anxiety, if it's depression, if it's both, like you just feel, right? And like, so I don't know that it directly changed me, but like I like to tell everyone that like it's doing this whole process, like the weight loss part is what like gets you in there, right? I'm this much, I weigh this much. And then when you tell, like, if I tell people I lost 155 pounds, it's like, wow, that hits the ear good, right? Lost over 100 pounds twice. It's like that hits the ear good too, right? But like for me, the intangible, unmeasurable things that have happened to me, have been afforded to me, have changed for me from doing this, like from losing the weight, like the life that I have now because I did it is so much more significant to me than like the weight, the number of like a pounds, right? Like that almost seems arbitrary or secondary now, which is weird to say to people that are in it or especially fully on the other side of it. Like that shit's important. And it is important. Like that feels good. Like being able to brag on numbers. Like I'm not going to lie. When you say it, like, yeah, it feels good, right? Feel a little, hearing you say athlete, it's like that feels good, right?
Yeah.
But like it's it still is all about like what just overall the life that I have. Like I'm afforded the opportunity to try to be athletic because I'm in a content enough headspace where I can like get myself to work out because I can explain the benefits because I'm not already so stressed out that I already used up 800 calories today. How am I going to get through dinner? Shit, I haven't worked out yet. Like, I'm now that I have gotten through that has changed my basic decision making. So like there's so many benefits of losing weight that aren't weight loss, right? And I think like it's so hard because that's the stuff that I want to tell people about and I want to explain it to them and I want to sell them on it. But like if you don't experience it for yourself, it's hard to understand it, right?
Nobody
So
gets
like
what non-scale victories are until you have some.
yes, exactly. So like that's why all the selling is all about here's a transformation picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like here, this is what I look like before. This is what I look like now.
Mm-hmm.
Look how much different it is, right? It's like here's the number because that'll get you like excited. You'll be impressed by that. But like really all of that stuff, which started out as the main focal point, has become so secondary to everything else that like so if I could really like get someone to actually listen to me, I would just say like even in the hard moments, keep going because trust me, like this the whole reason I wanted to be a coach in the first place wasn't like I want to make a life out of fitness because that's what I do now, right? I mean, it does help, like you were talking about earlier, like it kind of helps me. There have definitely 100% been times where I have made the air quotes right choice because it would have been beneficial for work, so to speak, right? like that I would be lying if I said that never happened. But like the reason that I started doing all this is because like the just the difference, I use the word freedom a lot, right? Like it's almost like, and again, this is another thing it's hard to explain to people is like financial freedom, right? Like you struggle for so long, that's just like all you get used to, your paycheck to paycheck. All of a sudden, someone hits this point where it's like you're not tied up against it anymore, right? You get a little bit of financial freedom, and it's like you literally like feel lighter physically, like your stress is so light that you feel different. Uh, and like I can't compare this to that enough, I guess. Like just the freedom, like what is afforded to me. Like there's no more, I don't worry about weight restrictions. I don't worry about how far I have to walk. I don't worry about like what size clothes am I going to have to wear? Is the harness on the ride going to be big enough? Like this, all of that shit that you're constantly running your life through this filter, right? To like the big guy filter, And it's like just not having to do that and being able to say like, I think I want to like, I can wake up tomorrow and I can be like, I'm gonna go try a CrossFit class and I can just go do it. Whereas like honestly, even at like 220 pounds, I don't know that I would have had that confidence. So some of it also comes from like sustaining it for so long. You know what I'm saying? Like keeping it up. But yeah, just just the freedom, right? Just like being able to live my own life on my own terms without feeling a little freer or separated, not letting other things control me. And like food is obviously a big one, but losing the weight is all part of a self progression thing, like a self improvement journey. So it's not all about weight loss, it's all about me. Weight loss was just one of the big things. That's just like the big thing to take care of.
Yeah.
But like all of it's changing and evolving together. So like lose the weight, because the doors that it opens, like who knows what you do with that, right? Like where do you go? I mean, and then that's again, not even saying it has to be something physical. You can just, I love traveling, but I don't fit on airplanes. This is kind of a cliche example. It's like, well, if you love traveling, but you like hate flying because it's a miserable experience when you're big, it's like, think about what life would be like if we could get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where like you just fit on an airplane like normal, and then you don't have to think about it anymore, right? You don't have to buy the extender or buy 2 seats or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the
non-scale victories is where it's at, right? I guess so you wanted me to give like one piece of advice, and I would have talked to them just then for like 15 minutes, but like just really lean into the non-scale victories. Try to use those to keep you up, right? Like what does Mark Bell say? Puts points on the scoreboard, right?
Yeah.
It's like that, similar, right? Like really look for a non-scale victory in everything, because there's a non-scale victory in like, oh, I wanted to get a muffin this morning, but I didn't. That is a win. Like it feels stupid. It feels silly. Obviously, I'm supposed to do that, right? But you didn't last week. You didn't last month. You didn't any other time before today. So therefore, that's a win, right? So
I love it, dude. How can people better stay in touch with you?
The best place would be on Instagram, where I'm at Ben.Jitsu, right? So it's just my first name and then the second half of jujitsu, right? That is honestly probably the best place. I'm at thebenjitsu.com. If you want to check out my website, there's a little bit of stuff on there. But I'm very poor about keeping up with it. And it's mainly just a way for people to find me online and contact me through email, which you can do. It's thebenjitsu at gmail.com. But like I said, Instagram's the best place. DMs, comments, whatever you want to do. Email's cool too. And I do have a website if you want to be underwhelmed.
Okay. Thank you for spending some time with me today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I was flattered that you asked me, and I had a blast. So
I feel the same, dude. It's good to know you. Thank you, dude.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
All right. I'll catch up with you soon. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Take care, dude.
All right. Bye, pal.